In this week's Kits and Cruising, Christmas comes early for me with the Foreman Can-Am, and Penn tells us the Ginnetta story.
The late 60s. The music was mostly rotten and the clothes were appalling, but not in every area was taste forgotten entirely. Think of the supercars, and I'm talking about the grace of the Ferraris and the lean splendour of the GT40s. Gorgeous things, you must recall what I'm talking about. And that's why we're here today, to look at the cars that come from a small company called Foreman. They record the sports cars of that era, the late 60s, and they are gorgeous. Make no bones about it, there is something overtly erotic about the curves in these cars. When the originals were penned back in the late 60s, I think somebody knew what they were doing, and I think it was about more than purely aerodynamics. Have you ever lain on a hot beach on a summer holiday and looked across and just seen, you know, curves and forms lying next to you? Look at this. Does that not ring any bells? Slightly familiar shapes in there. And the good thing, of course, is that these are hand-built cars. You can personalise them to your own requirements. There are 4 here today. Some of them explore the idea of ultimate road car, and others, like this, go for authenticity, and I really mean to an obsessive degree. The owner of this car has moved the spare wheel, so it's hanging here out over the tail, where it would originally have been. He's reversed the way in which this cover over the rear of the engine of the car, it would have lifted this way when it came from the factory here with the body kit, but no, he wants to be authentic. It goes this way. He's also lowered the actual roofline. The profile of the car now replicates faithfully the cars of the era. And he's even gone to the ultimate lengths, which is on this body, to actually fit the rivets that replicate what you would have seen in the 60s, all in the name of authenticity. And the man responsible for all of that minute detail and work is Eddie. It's your car.
That's right.
It's one of the first.
Correct.
Foreman, so it's what, 5 years old?
5.5 years old now, yes.
Immaculate condition.
Thank you very much.
Looks gorgeous. Mind, I'd look after it if it was mine. You've gone for absolute authenticity rather than going down the route of, say, ultimate road car. So why that particular route for you?
Well, it's not just authenticity. I also want it to be an ultimate road car. I want to be able to drive down to the south of France, which I've done a couple of times. I've been down to Nürburgring to watch the Old Timers Grand Prix and various other rallies we take part in. And I want it to be safe. I want it to be quick. I want it to be enjoyable to sit in for long distances.
But to look so authentic. I know you did a massive amount of research. You didn't just guess. You've taken photos of cars of the time, the whole lot.
That's right.
And a massive amount of work. Why this kind of car, though? What does it say to you?
Well, I suppose it shows my age a bit. I enjoyed watching motor racing. In my youth, I watched the motor racing of this type of car. And I do think that this P4 replica represents the ultimate in the big sports cars of the late 60s. Prior to aerodynamics taking over or dictating the shapes of the car. They thought if it looked right, it is right. And I think they had, I wish they'd go back to it.
Now look, I know you've done an amazing amount of work to keep this looking very much as if it stepped straight from the late 60s. But at the back there, the engine of course doesn't. That's a little more modern. Can we go and have a look at that?
Yeah, sure.
Right, let's go and have a look at this. So Eddie, what have we actually got underneath here?
We have a Renault 3-litre V6 engine.
Yeah.
Slightly modified, about 180 horsepower.
Why that engine?
One of the reasons we chose it was because it is a V6 and I wanted to sound similar to a V12.
Yeah, which it does.
Which it does. And I wanted an easy installation with respect to the gearbox. And this engine comes fitted in the Renault in this formation.
Yeah.
So subsequently that's dropped straight in.
It's nice and easy.
Yeah. It makes it easy from the kit building point of view.
And from that point of view, I mean, in your pedantic determination and stubbornness to be authentic, you've turned this round. So this is how it would have been on a car of the late 60s. It would have lifted this way, but the kit goes the other way.
That's right.
And I mean, I can't get in it.
Well, it's not practical, I must admit. The original way is most probably... Sorry, not the original way.
At all.
That's right. Yeah.
As a drive, what's it like?
It's lovely to drive. I mean, it's a compromise. We've done the suspension as a compromise between fast road and track. Yeah. And yes, we've been down to the south of France in it.
Well, you drive this a lot. We're not talking about toddling down to the shops or the odd Sunday drive, are we? We're talking long.
Yes, yeah, I do go down to the shops in it, on a Sunday generally.
Right. For some, it's authenticity. For others, it's just out-and-out performance. And when you look down the specification of a kit car, and in that list, the engine choices include things like Lamborghini, Ferrari, small block Chevy. You know you're starting to talk about some serious performance tackle here. And if you put that whole lot together in your Foreman and build the best you can, you end up with something like this. And this is a serious piece of road-going race car. It was built by Tony over here for a customer who wanted the best. I mean, the best. And boy, did he get it. Tony, this is the biz. What have we got here?
It certainly is. Well, it's probably the most powerful car ever built from the Foreman stable. I was commissioned by a London businessman to build this car, and the specification was to be suitable for very fast road use, for track use, and possibly for his sons to race at a later date.
And of course, for the racing side of it, I mean, you're no stranger to race cars at all, so he came to the right man, didn't he?
Absolutely, I like to think so. I mean, I've been involved with motor racing since I was a very young boy.
Yeah.
I did an apprenticeship with the checkered flag in Chiswick, and progressed to racing my own single-seater cars, and then on to sports and GT cars. And in 1995, I was driving for the BMR team, and I won the BRSCC Sports GT Championship, and then decided that I was getting on a bit and it was time
So now you're building them. And at no point has he done anything. I mean, this car's been driven, babied and gently, absolutely. At no point over 20 miles an hour. I've followed him in it, totally gentle. At the back of this thing is a serious engine. I mean, we're not talking small then. What actually have we got under here?
Well, part of the deal with the customer was for me to build a car which had a minimum of 350 horsepower. And would you like me to open the back?
Yeah, do it. Let's have a look. Let's have a look under here. Because this one will hinge the way that they would do on the kit, which does give you tremendous accessibility here. We can get the back opened up. This is monumental. This is serious.
What
Chevy.
it is basically, it's a real steel Chevy small block 5.7 litre, Edelbrock top end, Morosso bottom end, built by Real Steel in West Drayton, dynoed by them and running on the dyno, and the customer and ourselves and Neil Foreman went up to West Drayton and they ran it, put it through its paces on the dyno, and we reached 350 horsepower even with their excessive silencing that they had.
Ah, nice. I have always wanted to do this, and this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So, gentlemen, if you would start your engines, please. This should be thunder.
Five years before the Beatles had their first hit record, four brothers decided to go into the car industry. Bob, Ivor, Trevor and Doug Walklet named their cars after an old girlfriend of Bob's. Ginnetta is that name. 40 years later, 34 individual, separately identifiable models, and you have one of the great stories of the car industry. Ginetta's first car, the G2, wasn't a great commercial success. It looked like a Lotus for a start, so it didn't really help the job. But then they brought this out. This is a G4. This is a 1966 car. The production started in 62. Simple car, space frame chassis, fiberglass body. Could be had with a hard top, or it could be convertible, or both. 1500cc Ford engines and 4-speed gearboxes, latterly cross-flow engines, powered the car, which was very, very light. Great racing successes. They also brought out in the early 80s a thing called the G4 Series 4, which was a bit wider, a bit longer and a bit heavier, but it didn't sell. But the real crown jewel in the Ginnetta crown, as they say, is this, the Ginnetta G12. Now, 1966, and look at this for a shape. Totally modern, totally up to date. A car built solely and specifically for GT racing. True mid-engine specification, twin cam engine in the back here, 1622 cc's, BRM this one's got. 5-speed transaxle in the back there. Lightweight construction, 603 kilos, only 603 kilos, in a lightweight space frame construction, minimalist but very, very beautiful. Fiberglass body shell, and you have the G12. Production went from 1966 to 1967 when a company called Chevron came along and wiped the floor with them, with something much, much better and much, much quicker. Strange little feature down here. See this bulge in the bonnet? This was for a spare tyre, spare wheel and tyre. It had to be there to comply with the regs. They were daft regs and nobody ran with it, but unfortunately the cars went a bit light at high speed. Still do apparently. But Ginnetta needed to make some money, around about 67. So what they did, they thought, right, we'll make a car that the public will really like. And they did. So they built this. The G15. Little two-seat coupe. Very original, sweet shape. They sold 800 of these. Well, that's the official figure, and it's pretty much to be believed. Again, simplicity. Keynote of all Ginnettas is simplicity. Simple platform chassis. Steel tubing, square shapes, kicks up at the back and ends up here with, of all things, a Hillman imp engine. 998cc Coventry Climax modified engine. Not a lot of brake horsepower, but enough to power it at some very, very respectable speeds. Little 4-speed gearbox in there. This one's been modified, but overall, as you can see, it's a sweet shape. Just a nice little coupe. Lots of nice touches on these cars. Beautifully integrated bumper down there, look at that. See these are mini window catches. MGB, that's come off. Morris Ital, if you like. Look again here around the front. Look at this nice wraparound bumper. Look at these lights push back, comply with type approval in actual fact, and it's high enough. The job's proper. Plenty of boot space in there. You could use this every day. Most people who've got them do use them every day. No problem again inside. It's not as cramped as the old G4 over there. Plenty of room in there, plenty of leg room, proper heating and ventilation system. You can't go wrong. So they made money. 800 of these cars, made them a few quid. But when you're Ginetta, you want to go racing. And if you want to go racing, you've got to be out a single-seater, haven't you? Well, they did. And we're lucky enough today to have one of only 2 surviving cars from the era when Ginetta went single-seat racing. This is a G17. There should be a G16 sat here, but nobody seems to know what it really looked like. So we come to this, the G17. Desperately rare car. Again, simplicity with Ginetta, their hallmark, their trademark. Simple suspension, simple space frame chassis. Few nice little technical innovations, not bad at all. However, they only made 4, and 2 of those are actually called Ginnetta G18s and had Ford engines. This one, 998cc's to get under the 1000cc Formula 4 rule at the time for the series 1969, I think it was. Very, very simple. Get your Hillman imp engine, get your Hillman imp transaxle, fit all these bits at the back here nice, Rotoflex couplings as used by Lotus, simple suspension, 4-wheel disc brakes, light, manageable and quick. Sadly, it didn't work that well. Nowadays the cars, well both cars that they know of, are only used for sprints and hill climbs. This one's beautifully preserved. G18s, nobody knows whether there are any, but they were fitted with Ford engines, the cross-flow Ford, and became what is now known as Formula Ford all the way through. It used to be called Formula Ford 1600. Again, as I say, only 4 cars made, but really sweet, and a great historical piece. Rarity's good. However, we're back again with commercial rearing its ugly head, and Ginetta had to make another car, something to make money. This time they made what is arguably the best Ginetta, certainly in my opinion, the G21. Look at this for a car. It's proper, it's production, it's type approved. Ginetta sold a lot of these cars. Again, a simple chassis, 1725 Sunbeam Rapier whole bay engine. Not a bad little engine in actual fact, bit thirsty. Dell'Orto carburetors, they were very good but they went out of tune. But look at this car, acres of space. It's a true 4-seater. Okay, you've got to be a bit small to get in the back, but you can go anywhere in this. It's just beautifully simple and at the same time practical. It's got all sorts of nice touches. Look at this little recess here in this boot catch. It's just superb. Recognise these? Hillman imp bonnet hinges. Knockout. Just look at all this gear around here. Again, the simplicity of this wrap-round bumper. These nicely recessed lights, well out of the way. Look at that lovely little grille there with the washers in there. Bulge for the carburetors. It's sweet all the way through, whichever way you care to look at it. And it still looks modern today. I think it's just glorious, and I would really like one. But they're getting rarer, and they're getting harder to find parts for. But the club will always help you. But It's just a happening car, and it was dead right for the time, and it's dead right today. So there you have it. You've seen 5 cars today, which, to be honest, hardly scratches the surface of the Ginnetta story. 34 model names, 40 years continuous production. Where, you might ask, is the G27, the 32, the 28, the 25, the GRS Tour even? I don't know, maybe we could find a bit more space in another programme for them.
They've sent me to Holland, where I'm off to meet one of the top European tractor pulling teams and help them as they prepare for the next round of the Dutch Championships. I must be mad. Hello.
Hey.
Pleased to finally meet you.
Okay.
Thank you. I've got my overalls with me,
Yeah.
so these will be all right, won't they? They're sort of,
Good
you
size.
did say bring them. Yeah?
Fair clean.
Yeah, they are nice and clean. You've got some work for me to do.
Oh, I think we can find some jobs for you.
Excellent. Let's go and have a look. Oh, oh, my thumb. Oh, no, it's not. Yeah.
Oh, I got it.
The left one. Pump it up. Okay.
Why are you doing that? Take this one. Just like this.
Why tractor pulling? Why do you do this?
Why tractor pulling?
Yeah.
Well, a difficult question, but we started 20 years ago. I like to wrench on engines and, you know, and to get out a lot of power. So we were looking to tractor pull in Holland, I think a couple of years ago, and then we started to build a tractor.
And now look what you've got. Describe this thing to us. Just what is it?
Oh, now it's a modified tractor, as you see. Now it's got 2 aircraft engines on it. We rebuilt them a little bit. We put some new ignitions in to build some more horsepower out of it. Now we run on methanol. That's something different than a diesel engine. And the diesel engine got 150 horsepower, and this one got 2,500 horsepower.
There are a few English teams, some of which do pretty well.
Oh yeah.
How do you rate the British teams in this then? They're pretty good?
Oh, they're pretty good. Like Desperdan, he's very tough. And maybe we have a chance this year to gonna pass him. I think it's for 7 or 8 years he's European champion. And I think the time is there, somebody got to pass him.
How many hours preparation then for one race, for that 10 seconds of racing?
How many hours? 2 days working. We have to check out, reset the clutches if it is necessary. When we have some broken parts, like last weekend, we have to rebuild an engine completely. Then we have to work all week, together with the farming, milking the cows in the morning and in the evening. And then the time between, we have to work at the tractor.
What about actually building this thing? You've been running it in one form or another for some years, but there's a lot of design in this, a lot of fabrication. Do you do all that yourselves?
Yeah, we designed together with the company who makes the boxes. For example, the gears, they were made in Canada. The gears are in the box, and this box it's made in Holland by Van der Waal, the tractor Heart of the Eagle. It's a good man, he got a big job there, and he's making the box for us. And like I said, we had the gears from True Gear and Spline in Canada. We have some friends in Canada, and he had a factory building gears for a lot of teams in Europe. Like Terminator in Belgium, he's building the gear for, and some other tractors in Holland.
This is a supercharger fan. It rotates at up to 40,000 RPM. There's another one bolted into the engine in there, and hence the blanket, because if one of these things shatters, something's got to be there to keep all the bits in place. Each engine has its own fuel tank. These 2 are for the 2 on it currently. The 3rd engine, when that's put on, has its own separate fuel tank, each of which holds about 40 litres. Now, in the course of one pull, that's 100 metres, something like that. Each engine can use up to 15 litres of fuel, which means 45 litres to do 100 metres. Not desperately economical. They're dry sump engines, so each one has its own oil tank. I'm standing on the 2 for these 2 engines. Each tank holds 30 litres, and there's another 10 litres or so just floating around inside the engine. That is a lot of oil. And there is no dipstick. So, I've got individual pedals to brake individually the left and right rear wheels. I've got my shift levers for the gearboxes. I've got various switches here for the ignition. I've got my fuel pump. Most important of all, I've got my throttle. There's no adjustment whatsoever on the seat, which for me, the reach isn't quite right. And there's no power steering. How manly is that?
In this room we got the main trophies for the European Championships and the Euro Cups, Dutch Championships. And, this was the first trophy we won, was from 1979. That's the first prize, the first trophy we won, and this is the most recent one from last weekend, a Winden off. We came second on the Euro Cup.
So with the next round of the Dutch Championship just around the corner, there's an opportunity up for grabs to take another trophy home to the cabinet. So, did the extra bonus of my added assistance help? Well over 7,500 horsepower that may be on these incredible machines can plus hundreds of hours of preparation as well. But then come the big day, what happens? It rains. And Jan, that's it. Game over.
Yeah, it looks like they cancelled the track today, so now we have to load up the tractor and go back home.
Considering the size of these things and the power and the amount of work you put into them, I'm surprised that they can't work in the rain.
No, they can't work in the rain because they made a special track for it, special clay, and they can't have water on it because then we cannot get all the horsepower on the ground.
So all that macho power, bit of rain, that's it, forget it.
That's it, then forget it. Yeah.
Well, it's a disappointment for everybody. So I suppose from here for this week in Bakel, surrounded by tractors covered in blankets to keep the rain off, next week we're going to try something even more difficult than tractor pulling in the rain. We go across Belgium to find anything interesting.
If you've seen anything of interest to you in this programme, then our fact sheet will tell you exactly who and where to contact. All you need to do is send a self-addressed envelope with 2 first-class stamps on it, not forgetting the programme number 2, Kitson Cruisin Fact Sheet, Menor Motors, Granada Television, Key Street, Manchester, M60, 9EA.
Now, ordinarily in the programme, I would of course at this point take it out for a drive on the road. And I'm going to. You're going to have to wait probably about 3 weeks. Watch us.